Are we good to go, Greg? I won't go until you give me the go ahead. Okay. Alrighty, welcome to our work session. It is 6:03, September 26th, 2022. Let me do roll call first. Richard, here. Heidi,
Here.
Christy. Oh,
I'm here.
thanks, Christy. Ricardo,
Yeah.
Crystal,
Here.
Bill,
Here.
and Sarah is here. So we have a full suite tonight. If you join me in the flag salute, the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Under board communication, just a reminder about the OSBA Regional Legislative Sessions, legislative meeting, October 6th, 2022. Please RSVP no later than this Friday, and you can do that with Diane. They are having dinner and then a meeting. Do you have anything you want to say on it, Bill? Or
No, except I can't make it because the LLC conference is the same day, so I'll be in Bend at the LLC conference. So.
you've went for a number of years, Heidi. I mean,
Yeah.
do you want to say a few words about it?
Well, I haven't had it for a couple of years. It's I don't know, is there anybody here who?
I went with you.
Yeah, so they have a dinner, which is nice. Looks like they're having that at 5:30, and then it's a chance to talk to OSBA staff in kind of a more personal setting, and they go over what the legislative
They're gonna do
priorities
it.
and goals for the year and what else.
They do some general things that they're working on, but it's all about the legislator because this is funny. We had some people, we were all OSBA board was in Bend or Sun River, this was in Retreat. And the comment we got from the legislative team was that this is going to be the worst session in over a century in Oregon's history.
Well, like
Right.
what makes it the worst session?
You're gonna have a new governor in a tight
Right.
race, you know, so the state's gonna be split 33. Whoever wins will only be supported by less than 40% of the state. You have a new House rep chair, you have a new Senate chair. The Senate chair isn't even known yet who it's going to be. 30% of the memberships are either gonna be in new seats or new people or both.
Mhm.
Yeah, and there's already the ugliness has started when you look at the commercials on TV. You know, the national commercials don't really end in this conversation, but you can even see the
And-
local races are pretty ugly.
Yeah, with a new governor, we have a new superintendent of schools on the state level. So
Yeah,
because that position is dual. So
yeah. So there's gonna be changes at ODE, there's gonna be changes in pretty much all the departments. And it's pretty much each of the governor's cabinets said they're gonna change department heads. So there's just gonna be quite a ride for the next year. So,
Something to look forward to.
yeah.
Change, painful, but always there.
all right. Anyway, if you are interested, I would encourage you to try and make it because I've usually gotten good information out of it, honestly. And it is a little more intimate and a little more one-on-one, I would say, than some of the bigger meetings are throughout the state.
When we
So,
do come back here to report out, I'm going to the Washington County meeting. But
Okay.
I can't go to the Marion County one, so I'll tell you what happened over there.
cool. All right, moving
Oh,
on.
that's a Thursday. It's not a Friday, huh?
Yeah, it's a Thursday evening, so yeah. Moving down our agenda to item number 3, our work session related to policies. I'll turn it over to you
So,
and our lovely homework.
yes, we have the packets here, don't you? You may have had time to look at it. And we want to look at it again to review it, you don't want to spend.
I will say I read it and I brought my questions.
Great. Fantastic. So let's go through them one at a time. The packet may appear to be thicker, but it's just that when it, that's my copy. The only thing left in the copy machine was hard stuff. So. Okay.
It happens. Been there.
Yeah, so the first policy that we started with the required one.
So we thought we would take those out first and then do the optional ones. And the first required one on the list is the local wellness policy.
Mhm.
And for the local wellness policy, if we read on page 3, the policy update, this is in response to a perceived need to provide additional information or realign something for the triennial assessment. So once every 3 years, we have to do an assessment of our program. And it's becoming due for the first time. So, and in anticipation, not requirement, anticipation, the ODE, OSBA, and other stakeholders, OEA Choice Trust, began discussing how to help members realize more effective local wellness planning and implementation in their districts. And again, where it's not required on all these things, it's just a lot of suggestions. One of the supports was to revamp the model, local wellness implementation, the local wellness policy to bring elements of the accompanying model administrative AR into the policy. So the result of putting those two together is a revised policy and recommendation to resend the AR if it's present in the board policy manual. And then they also state that these same resources are available from the Oregon Healthy Schools website. So as far as my analysis of the work that they did, well, I appreciate what they're trying, what they attempted to do is to help stakeholders make the policy clear and then have that be the guide for how people did their work in the way that they would like to see. It adds significant optional language, the way that it's written. And there are many, many, many brackets throughout the document that add optional language. Most elements that are in the optional language are already in place. And what I've highlighted and tried to emphasize are the things that are missing from our work right now that would be valuable additions and would not take too much time to include them. My third point is that this is just a suggested model and it's already available on the website for future reference if you need it. My fourth point is that the suggested report and the process required in order to create it is not realistic at this time for the food services department, given the short staff, high responsibility. And then coming back in a post-COVID world with where they have to collect money again and not get free lunch, or just, increase their workload again by another third. So to do all of the things that ODE and the stakeholders suggest that we do would add a substantial workload that could be done more efficiently if we do not include it in policy, but just work with the website.
Mhm.
So hence I suggested that we don't add a lot of the optional language. Any questions about that? I know Crystal will get me hers later.
No
2 weeks too, that would be fine, yeah.
The language on employee wellness, is that going to be in a different policy or are we just figuring that altogether?
It's already in a different,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, and I think what they're trying to do is to help us pull those pieces together.
Yeah.
And I did leave that line about social and emotional wellness being part of something, and that is significant. It's a priority of the board. And I think it's easy to address and putting that report together.
Yeah, I do think it kind of makes sense to separate employee from student.
Yeah.
So it sounds like that's the way it's being written.
So, just to clarify, this. What is that? What is required? Is a wellness committee I thought, the way I read it, I thought it was required.
The wellness committee is required. The triennial report is required. Everything in brackets is a suggestion about what we could add to the report. You can see in the language that they put into the policy was taken from the AR and just shifted over into this document, which I don't think is necessary,
So,
but it's a good guy. I can see why they did that.
so we still have our AR. Oh, I see. There's a current one here.
If you look at our current policy, you can see we have a lot of the elements already that are included.
The current one doesn't include language around the advisory committee, though, does it?
No,
Okay.
and that's another, that's a suggestion. It's not a requirement.
Okay.
And again, that would be asking the food service department to put the committee together to do that work.
So I will go ahead, if anybody minds, I'll just go ahead and go through my questions really quick. Is that okay? On this EFA?
On EFA, yeah, let's, yep.
So I did think that we should keep the water requirement in there.
I wondered about
Just because we did have issues with the whole water thing and COVID and all that kind of stuff. So that was my one suggestion on that. I agreed with removing the PTA, PTO. I don't think we should be policing outside
that.
areas. And then I also agreed with deleting the wellness committee and all the other non-necessary docs throughout it.
Mhm.
And the EFA ARS suggested. When I read through the entire document.
Yep.
So that's my comment.
So if the question is, why was the water removed to begin with? The answer was because we're already doing that. However,
Yeah,
we can still have it in there.
I see,
Yeah.
It's on our,
Yeah, we're already doing it, so.
it's already in the,
In the
Yeah,
current,
in
Current
the
one.
current, yeah. But I'll make sure that language remains there.
Yeah.
it Stays.
okay, so, when it talks about physical education requirements, because I know we have those are new. I mean, in the recent years, they're new. Is that in a different document? Is that in a different policy that we have?
Yeah, that's in our curriculum framework. That's a requirement
Mhm.
statewide.
Okay,
Yeah,
I thought we had it somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what, see, what they're trying to do is to help that committee pull all those things together by putting them into this policy. And how many places in policy do you need to have the same things? Is the question. They can go to that website and then look at all the suggestions, and get that information without having to do in policy,
Mhm.
that they do it this way. Maybe they want to do it a different way.
Christy, did you have any comments?
Not on this one, thanks.
Bill or Ricardo, did you guys have anything? Ricardo? You could.
So for our second reading, I will add the water.
that'd be great for me. Yes.
I think this is just a simple change.
More workplace harassment.
Yes. In the first line of the policy, page 4 of the policy update. First sentence. The legal references for policy GBEA workplace harassment have been updated to reflect an assigned statute number. To what is House Bill 3041, which modified Oregon's definition of sexual orientation and added a definition of gender identity. So, in this policy, we are just changing the legal reference.
Which policy are you looking at right now?
GBEA,
GBEA,
Okay, what about number 3, GCAB? Did you skip that one or?
I haven't gotten to it
we
yet.
haven't got to, yeah, that'll be the next one.
Oh, sorry, it's out of order on our
Order.
agenda,
Yep.
but in our packet, it's coming.
Okay.
Yep,
I'm not seeing the change in the reference. Maybe
At the bottom.
right here.
Page 2, you added 2.
on the footnote?
No, on the, yeah, on the next page.
Yeah.
Right there.
Right. Right here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, thank
There
you.
you go.
Yeah, the legal references. Okay, great. I was looking in the body of the policy. Thank you.
And then, so is it out of order in the packet? for the-
It's out of order on the thing in the packets, but we all have it coming as it. So Christie, our next one will be GCAB. Is
I,
that right?
Yes,
Okay, okay. Great.
so I have one workplace harassment that says see summary page 5, and then I have another one that says update the place. But they look like the same thing. No, no.
Kind of
Anybody else?
they are.
one is the old one is the
Yeah,
new one.
the one on the front is the new one, and the second one is the old one.
Oh, I see, they just, okay.
And the change is highlighted.
Yeah, and my only recommendation right now is for the reading, you know, when we get it back for a second reading, then we can, it'll be presented in a way that you would, if you wanted to consider it. Or further modification, for now, it's just presented for the reading. Okay. As you can see, UCAD is last adopted or readopted in 2009, according to the document. So what you have, and
I don't think so, because I know we have looked at this.
We did students,
More
but this one is
recently.
staff.
Okay.
this-
We
yeah,
did the student one
Yeah,
very recently, but not the staff one.
right.
It's not in my memory.
no, I think we did.
Staff?
Well, since I've been on the
No.
board, so it
Student.
says down here, 11/22/19. I don't know, that's a H, I don't know what that is. Okay, I thought I
Yeah.
saw it on the actual,
Yeah, so this is a requested revision for clarity on what staff are expected to do
Mhm.
and what the parameters are, because it's very confusing to them.
Just so it's clear, so so coaches are required now to use email
Mhm.
lists rather than text to
Mhm.
communicate with
Or-
athletes or.
Or a site that they have for the communication purpose, so
Okay.
that everyone gets the same
The same.
email, there's no personal.
Yep.
So the only questions I
Yes.
had
Okay.
is, how will this affect the suicide prevention plans that some people have in place?
There is a.
Is the safety clause cover that?
Yeah, there's a safety clause in here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, somewhere in here, is it staff should or will? I think it's will that was circled, right?
Yes, well,
Okay, and then my same question about coaching and club communications. And this is only during school hours? Or does this include like extracurricular after hours? I'm thinking of like the clubs, like say you're on a field trip somewhere to like, I don't know, FBLA or FFA or something like that, like. So is that considered out of this jurisdiction if they're texting to let them know or?
when they're on a field trip, let's say they're traveling and they have
Okay.
supervisory responsibility, then
Mhm.
they would be contacting students on an as needed basis, and parents would know that in advance.
Okay, so this wouldn't apply to if they're on a field trip or need, okay,
Yeah.
that was my other
There
question.
is a reference to texting private personal messages to students while off duty is strongly discouraged.
Okay.
So, unless there's a field trip, and that's official school business. So
Okay.
it's different.
so, but it says. So I mean, I guess I would want it to be, because. I mean, kids don't look at their email, they're never gonna look at their email.
No.
So if they you have to, they're looking at text messages. And if I'm a coach, or if I'm supervising people on a field trip, like you're in Chicago or something, and you're trying to say, hey, everybody, there's a change. we need to be here,
We always use group text list. We make a group text list when
Right.
we're on the road.
right,
Right.
with like 2 adults or something on the
Yeah.
list.
Right.
So that's appropriate, but is that clear in here that that's allowed?
Yes,
Yeah, because I know like there's the band app and then there's like some other apps with
Mhm.
group chat announcement things.
When we do larger things, there's an app that we use. And
Yes.
it's called,
yeah,
I'm not gonna remember, but I can.
Some of them use band app.
Yeah.
Like 4 or 5 different ones I know, and then there's like a couple others. So will we have that like in our AR, is there an AR to this?
no,
Oh, so will we need to make like a,
staff handbook.
okay,
Yeah, that
great.
is, yeah.
that will have some way that they can,
And I know like on the zoo trip, we did a tree, because there was like 15 adults in
Mhm.
there, because we had 3 buses. And there was kind of a tree of who was in charge of it. Not the 4th graders, obviously, but that was, each
Yeah.
adult had assigned 5 4th graders.
Mhm.
to Keep in your vision.
Yeah.
I guess as I read this policy, it doesn't come across clear to me that texting a group text while
Mhm.
not, on a, in an app, whatever, a sporting event or club event is allowed.
Mhm.
So I guess if, maybe you could kind of help us look at the language.
I think it's
that's-
not allowed, but it's in the training. I do all the teacher trainings. and It's in the
Safe
trainings.
schools.
Well, then it should be in the policy, I suppose, if it's, I mean, we should be training
Yeah.
the policy in my view.
I would want to like a verbiage added somewhere that says, in the event that you are in a club or extracurricular activity or sports, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, a two adult, text message type thing, because if you have a child who leaves for lunch
Mhm.
and they're not responding, I mean, you're gonna go the text message route, because that's 90% of communication for this age group right now.
I mean, I kind of feel like, I mean, if it's allowed, I kind of feel like, students will check email if that's the policy, I mean, I know.
But if
And-
they don't
and-
have it on their phone,
Mhm.
Well, if that's how they're gonna communicate from their coach, they'll get it on their phone, I think, but if it's allowed. then
But if
it
they're
should
not
be in the
thinking
policy.
about, like, if the coach needs to contact them and they don't know that the coach needs to contact them, they're not gonna just be checking they don't
Well,
check their email.
and you have your third thing of equity-based lens. Not everybody has access to a smartphone with email.
But they
Yeah,
all have a phone.
that's one of the issues that I have with the dance group is some of the kids do have access to certain things and some don't.
Mhm.
So the only way that we can communicate is by text.
Yeah,
So I mean,
then
if
let's put it in
there
the
is-
Policy, if that's,
And that's what
everybody
we do.
agrees.
When we're on the road.
I think as long as the communication is not individual to, individual advisor to individual
Right.
student.
Yep.
One-on-one.
Yeah,
that's what
I
the
think
training
that's,
does.
I think that's where
Yeah.
the district gets into a murky area where there potentially could be problematic for both sides.
Yeah,
for sure.
And it's just probably in, in this day and age inappropriate, so.
Yeah.
We may want to clarify that if this is our, our leading edge of policy with regards to that, we probably should clarify that and clarify the circumstances where, not the exceptions, but,
Yeah.
we may want to clarify that, a person-to-person text may exist in, you're back in.
Well, and if there's like a safety
You're back in,
law,
yeah, I was gonna say, if it's an overriding safety issue, to communicate one-on-one, and that's the only way, that's.
And I think writing it at the policy level would sound something like, for staff to student conversation, general, staff must follow the general guidelines of including more than one adult on a chain
Mhm.
and group communication rather than individual. And with permission from principal, supervisor, somebody.
Well, they can even copy a principal on it, like
Yeah,
just
yeah.
FYI.
Yeah, I was gonna
to-
say,
For,
that would be
for
the,
safety.
yeah, that would be the,
So a general guideline, I don't want to get too, but
sure.
make sure that we use the equity lens, so that general guideline applies to all, each and
Mhm.
every student. Have access to the safety net that we're trying to build in the policy.
Mhm.
Without making it too, you must do step one, step two, step three, because technology changes too quickly.
Mhm.
I think a general guideline that captures everything and serve all purpose.
I have a question on that. Because like last year, there was two instances where I received a message from one of the girls. To separate occasions, two different girls, and I did not reply.
Mhm.
So in the following practice, I told them, I said, I will not be answer any questions
Mhm.
if it's just directed to me.
Mhm.
You must put it on the group.
Right.
So that solved the problem. But I was thinking that for this year, I want to include the parents. Would that be okay?
Mhm.
So that if I have their parents' number also,
Mhm.
that they can be part of
Mhm.
the group, so they can see whatever they're
Mhm.
saying.
Yeah, that's why a lot of teams and clubs have a setup, and parents have to register and students have to register. And the email
Mhm.
goes out, it goes out to everybody.
Mhm. Yeah, I've seen those.
Yeah.
I think I like with Mar, it was the last couple years that,
Mhm.
yeah.
I am in support of something like this. I just think it needs a tiny bit of work.
Okay,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, that, I would agree with that, adding that verbiage.
that's why we have.
I had kind of a question on taking, disseminating obscene, pornographic. Obviously, that's really, very clear and something we need to follow. What happens when you get into like messages that aren't necessarily pornographic, but are racist or are memes that are, yeah, maybe just language that, communication should be on a profession, on a professional level. I mean, I don't know how to write that on in a policy.
Right.
But there's a lot of stuff that floats around that,
Right,
you know, um,
So my only thing is, and I totally agree with you, and I know what you're talking about. And definitely the racism thing, I think we could put in there, but just to be cautious, or we might have to have OSBA or legal or whatever redo for that First Amendment.
yeah, we can't, we can't. I think if we just have
It's a
something,
gray area.
it's recommended that we stay in a professional mode, especially.
Yeah.
It's in there
staff to-
already. I
yeah,
think.
there's several references.
There's the first sentence in the fifth paragraph,
In
bottom
the paragraph,
paragraph of the
okay.
adopt one says communication with students using personal electronic devices will be appropriate and professional.
Yeah,
I don't know if
so
that covers
that
it. but
probably
I-
covers
okay.
it.
I wonder if we can tuck like racism in commonly called texting, sexting, blah, 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 or I don't know how far we can go with it, but I mean,
Well, and I don't want to be the thought police, but,
Mhm.
if we should expect a certain level of staff to student communication,
Mhm.
I don't think that's inappropriate to ask for.
It says staff members while on and off duty will treat fellow employees, students, public with respect while posting on social media.
Okay, so I have a question about this.
A lot of that in there, yeah.
It says staff actions on social media websites, public websites or blogs while on or off duty, which disrupt the school environment, are
Mhm.
subject to disciplinary action up to and including dismissal.
Mhm.
Does this is this something we've had experience with this past year?
No,
No?
there was a disruption of someone's off-duty life.
That's what I mean. It says
But-
off duty.
Right, well, no, but the disruption wasn't to school.
The disruption has to disrupt the educational activity. of
I
school.
know. I guess what I'm saying was, yeah, because the school didn't take any action on that.
Because it wasn't.
Because of our
it-
policy,
It didn't
correct.
disrupt.
Yes.
The education.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that, because
Yeah.
I
Fair
think
question.
people should have the right to do off-duty, express themselves if they want to, and I don't think it's our
Um,
business.
Mhm.
But I also, it's just a fine line, you know.
There are
and
a
I-
lot of employers that have that.
Yeah.
Do they?
Policy for what it's worth.
Really?
That,
Yeah.
yeah, that
I
you-
have
Private-
one.
you can
private?
be disciplined for your private activity on social
Really?
media.
Let's just see what-
If you disrupt workplace. Yeah.
So where are
Or
you
their
coming from with the
reputation
question?
of the
Are you
company
coming from?
or-
Libertarian. I just don't like people. I just don't like.
I'm just
people
trying to come.
Getting in other people's business.
No,
That-
if you,
So are you coming from it as a liability for the district for not enforcing?
I
or
don't want the district to become
Thought police.
the thought police. I
Okay.
don't want them to become like, oh,
Yeah.
you know, we don't like what you did here. Unless, you know, honestly, if they're doing like, you know, something horrific, I guess though, that wouldn't be, you know, I don't want my kid going to school with a kid like that, but.
Yeah.
My work fire. if I go out or something
Yeah,
on social
I've
media,
covered
Mine can too.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, I
And
just
we're
want to
not-
make sure.
We're
that
not
they're-
watching, looking, anything like that. It would just be when something happened.
I
at
think it's
school
more
and
like a
somebody-
threat based.
It's a CYA.
Okay.
Right, that when something really gets out of hand.
It's
Well,
not
because, you know,
uncommon.
you do have parents who see something and they get up, sometimes they get upset about things. And so, because it says on here, a disruption includes like a parent threatens to remove their child from a particular class, a particular school. And,
Would it follow the same complaint route though, where investigation and all that stuff would
Yes.
take place?
Yes, everyone would have a due process. Yes.
all right, okay, I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
I had the same questions as Heidi did, and I was like, there's that fine line,
Mhm.
but I think it's relevant. It's unfortunate we have to have a policy about it.
Okay,
Does that give you enough to work with?
it does.
Go back?
Yep.
Okay. Christy, did you have any questions on that one?
No, I think you guys covered it really well. Thanks.
Okay. So on our schedule, next one is, looks like GCDA / GDDAR. Is that where we're headed next? Okay.
Okay, so basically the policies, you know, as described, House Bill 4030, which is in the 2022 session, modifies fingerprinting requirements for a person seeking employment in schools. And now makes a temporary exception to allow the Oregon Department of Education to waive fingerprinting requirements if ODE determines the person has submitted a criminal records check for the person's immediately previous employer. The employer is a school district or private school, and the person has not lived outside the state between the two periods of employment, which means they would have been background checked, they would have been updated. They're well in the system. And then it also says submitted it to a criminal records check conducted by TSPC within the previous 3 years, or remain continuously licensed and registered with the commission. So if they're already in the system, then ODE will waive the fingerprinting requirements. And it's a temporary change and sunsets July 1st, 2024. So there's nothing to add or delete or it's just the law change, and they're telling us that so we can update our policy.
The one thing I did disagree with is number 9, where a volunteer that is not likely to have direct unsupervised contact with students will not be required to undergo. I disagree. I think they should. Everywhere I volunteer, I have to.
Yeah. And I thought about, and that's the one, and you know,
And I mean, I don't know what everybody
It's
else
a-
feels, but
it's a-
that's my
yeah.
one that I'm like,
it's a good question, and I'm glad you brought that up. When I think about how I was reading that, I was thinking about the instances where I had parents who wanted to volunteer to see their child do something, you know, 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old. But a few years ago, the person had made a poor decision
mhm,
and has completed every process and hasn't had a problem since. But with that rule, I wouldn't allow them to be able to do that. And the May gives me the flexibility to take that into account before denying someone the opportunity to do that. So that's the only reason.
So
Other than
instead
that, I
of,
would have said will.
instead of will not or will, can we make that a may
Mhm.
instead? 'Cause
Just on number 9.
Yeah, just on number 9. So then it becomes is there a specific reason why, and can you speak to that and follow due diligence
Mhm.
regarding it?
Yes,
Versus,
Yeah,
because
we-
I'm not comfortable with will not, because that's
right. Yeah, we.
very definitive.
We usually ask for something in writing too. So
Yeah.
we can have it. um,
Because I understand that, and that was the other question I have, what disqualifies volunteers? Was there a reason behind it? Juvenile record issues, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, I would be okay with may, where it becomes as, because reconciliation is a good thing.
mhm.
But will not just seems too definitive for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, okay. So, we will do that.
Anybody
Go ahead,
else?
Richard.
I had a question on fees, I guess, because in my experience, generally the employer
Mhm.
pays for the background check if it's required, and it's usually after there's enough interest that they're willing to extend an offer, they extend an offer, but it's contingent upon successfully completing the background check, but the employer pays.
Mhm.
So I'm just curious how it works here if, an applicant is required to submit a background check and fingerprints, but they're required to pay the
Mhm.
fees. Like, do we just direct them where to go and then they just transact directly with the background check company and pay them? Okay. And then they submit the results to the district. Is that the? Okay.
And ODE does some of it for us. And then we pay for volunteers, but for employees, they have to provide their own.
About like ballpark, how much is that?
I can't tell you off the top of my head.
I will say it's
35,000.
35 to
Yeah.
50, depending on who you use and how extensive.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That
For
was
my
pretty
financial
good.
licenses.
It's $66 a person now.
Thank you, Linda.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's gone up.
yep.
Everything.
Noted.
Yeah.
And we do that level of background check on volunteers as well too.
But the district pays the fee for the volunteers.
Yeah.
Good day for mine.
Mhm. Christie, anything, comments on this one?
Yeah, I'm just thinking if we change that language to a may as opposed to will or will not. If there's some sort of process in place already in an AR or something that would support the decision making. Because somebody's gonna have to make a decision at that point, right? So. Yeah,
When we-
just if there, you know what I mean? If there is a process already established, or if there needs to be one with, if that language gets changed, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's a good point because this may not be correct, but it seems like there could be a liability issue there for whoever's making the decision if it's a may
Mhm, mhm.
and they choose not to and something
Yeah. that's
goes
why I learned
sideways,
from my
then,
desk.
is that person now gonna
Yes.
be responsible for something?
That's exactly what I'm thinking, like, just so that, because there is gonna be a decision that needs to be made, and if there's a process that's established outside of policy, then I think that would be suitable to cover whoever's making that decision. But if it doesn't already exist, then that might be on a to-do list.
So we do have a process that we notify them that they failed the background check. Then they can appeal, and the appeal comes to me. And then I investigate and then respond to their appeal.
But if the may is like, they are not required to complete a background check. And somebody makes
Yeah.
a decision that they don't need a background check and something
Oh,
goes sideways. Now, is that person who made the decision, they
Mhm.
didn't need a background check because it was
Yeah.
permissive, now
Yeah,
liable or
I
responsible for
think-
something.
Is there a scenario where we would
Well,
give the option to?
the scenario is that only as as they described in the policy change, that
Which is
it's waived.
working for
Yeah.
another district?
Yeah, right.
Well, no, because on number 9, A volunteer that is not likely to have direct unsupervised
right.
contact with students will or will not, and will not a circle, be required to undergo an in-state criminal records check. And that's the one I said I would feel more comfortable with will, but I'd be open to may if there was an extending circumstance like described.
Or may not, but if there, yeah, I mean, but if there's discretion, you
Yeah,
know, then it seems
yeah.
like
Yeah,
we're
the
sort of.
number 9, the scenario is
Maybe we
this volunteer will not be alone with children under any circumstance. They are with another adult. with the
Even,
Children.
even in the volunteering that I do outside of here, with another adult present at all times, all of us did a background check.
And this is a criminal records check. I guess that kind of falls into the same, the national. Okay, that was, okay. And I will look to see if anyone has language about that process. That, the appeal.
It might be easier for me to understand if you could give an example of how those volunteer positions might look differently, you know, one that would be screened and one that might not be.
If someone if someone's here, they've only been here for a couple of years. And they may or may not have paperwork. And they really want to go on this field trip with their child. But if they put their name in, they might get in trouble. They might be picked up by ICE. They might be, I mean, there's sometimes the parents are here temporarily. And we're put in a position where we have to try to protect the kids at the same time, protect parents' rights to be with their children. And afford them the opportunity to have something that every parent should have, or deny them that because they're afraid. So with the May, I have the latitude of doing my, research and my due diligence to ensure that every parent, regardless of who they are or why they're here, has the opportunity to be with their child. So that's kind of one example that I can give about that. It's kind of an equity-based thing.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that scenario.
I'm still fine with may, especially if we have a clear documentation.
Does that answer your question, Christy?
Yeah, I think so. I'm still just thinking about it.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about it. But thanks for the example.
And is that the last one?
No, I think there's one more. Special education.
Special education. If we have that, they just added, because, well, I guess I can read it from here.
Legal reference, yeah.
At its December 2021 meeting, the State Board of Education updated temporary rule OAR 581-015-2229, individualized COVID-19 recovery services. The OAR required IEP teams for eligible students to make decisions about individualized COVID-19 recovery services, which support the district's requirement to ensure a free and appropriate public education, also known as FAPE, to eligible students. So this is the language that is we're required to follow. And it's in the IEP, it says required, and then there's an AR that goes with it. Right now, we're just adopting the, because it's on the list this way, we're just adopting the AF. I didn't give all the documentation out for the AR, so, we could, if you have it, you can look at it for the AR, but I didn't see it It might be here. Yeah, this is what the one I have, which only changes the number of the legal reference. The AR isn't included in the package, so we will say that for the next one. And the AR does is it just has a section that's been added to the policy that describes how IEP, COVID-19 recovery services, IEP meetings will address the gaps. And that's it. There's no, it's new language, it's added, it's just for this period of time, and there's nothing that we do other than adopt. They have to do it anyway.
So are these the only policies we're looking at today?
Yes,
We're
yes,
not gonna
because
go
it's
into
not,
the other ones, yeah.
any question about that, Christie? Anybody else?
Nope, not for me.
Okay, now we're gonna quickly talk about.
Do we need, make
Oh.
an action on that?
The first reading for these, yeah. Forgot about
I will move that we accept for first reading the policies as presented today with the caveat that superintendent will work on verbiage we discussed and updating some of those policies. Okay. That'll work.
I'll second.
Motion a second. Is there any discussion?
I was just gonna go back to the earlier point that was made about training, and just ask if there's gonna be a sort of a circle back to the training materials to make sure that they're consistent with the current version of the policy, because it kind of seems like, there may have been a little bit of a discrepancy on one of the policies between what was being trained and what the language was in the policy, and it just seems like that's something we should, check
of
for
course,
all
yeah.
of the policies that are being revised.
Discrepancy is probably the wrong word. There's
Well,
more detail.
Yeah.
There's no contradiction between them.
I will agree though with
Hmm.
Richard that it isn't clear that you can text with a secondary adult, and it seems like that's been happening. And this specifically calls out no texting. So I think that probably falls under the discussion piece that we talked about before our second reading. It should clearly state those guidelines in there, which is my understanding.
Yeah.
That's good, good comments.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. Richard?
Aye.
Heidi? Christie?
Aye.
Ricardo? Crystal?
I,
Bill? Chair votes 4.
Great work.
Motion carries. All right, so we're on to strategic goals.
Yep, and as part of your plan goals, you wanted to learn about being a one demander. We supplied you with a book, Zaretta Hammond's Culturally Responsive Practices, which has some information about that, but Bill has put some things together for you. Is it the board's goal in this area is to also be warm demanders of the systems that support students? So the question is, so what is a warm demander, and how does a warm demander work within the system to promote these kinds of changes? So there's a definition that Bill provided in the context of classroom. A teacher who communicates personal warmth and regard while at the same time demands work towards high standards is a warm demander. Okay, and then there's a link there. Go ahead and hit that link, Linda. Forget to add. YouTube.
Share with sound, I think is required.
He's trying. There's some really nice pictures there with some words that you can't hear.
Well, by the way, Glenn and I, while we're doing technical updates with the
Yeah.
board retreat, I was asked if I was the board chair, and I said, yes, no, and then why? And they said, oh, because we're doing the thing on North Marion. Blah, blah, blah. And I said, oh, our board and vice chair would be very happy to deal with this.
Okay,
Yeah, I said, okay, well, you're on. I'm out.
Can you send us the link?
mhm.
When you're zooming, you have to say zoom with sound. There's a little box at the bottom.
Hold on a
Maybe.
second.
Say video with sound.
Yeah.
When you share, when you share
Yeah.
something.
At this particular explanation from, has the student voice and it highlights why it's important to them. So yeah, I will send you that link. And let's see.
Yeah. I support women. I do it at home all the
Can
time.
they stop sharing and
Yeah.
reshare and then check the box that says video with sound?
Can you,
I think the problem is that her sound is not gonna come through this TV.
No, usually it's just somebody forgot to check the box. If this is Zoom anyway.
Yeah, we could
I
just
get
basically
that.
homework assignment.
Yeah,
for us to
yeah.
watch.
Yeah,
If I
Okay.
were playing video, the sound would come. through the TV.
Well,
um,
should you
Play
I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna
be
different
sharing
way.
on.
there.
Linda,
If you don't check the box. to share
Linda,
sound, it
will
won't share
will
sound.
you get out of this one and then click on the next link?
Sure.
Play that.
The more research we accumulate on teaching,
As I'm in the midst of applying for residency right now, wish me luck. Beverly is again did
Ah. Skip the slides on me. Stop. I'm gonna stop that for a second. No, stupid thing. Okay. Let's put that one. Yeah. There you go. See that?
I don't approve graduation standards.
is that of the warm demander. These teachers are sympathetic and loving towards students, but also demanding, insistent, and methodically mean. Yes, mean. A study done in 1991 found that students are, quote, proud of their teacher's meanness, end quote, in certain contexts. In another study, a student tells how a highly respected and effective teacher communicates with students. Quote, Miss Cohn never cusses you out, but sometimes by the time she's done talking, you feel like you have been. Pity on students leads to improper relationship because it exposes a perceived hierarchy. It reveals a tendency to define people by their problems, opposed to seeing students as equals and full of potential. It feels good to be a giver and protector, to ease people's pain. However, To learn, students must engage in productive struggle. Dousing students in sympathy or pity robs them of going through the necessary pain to experience the satisfaction of overcoming a difficult task. This is the real self-esteem and confidence booster, overcoming difficult things. Therefore, as a teacher, you must be vigilant in the sympathy you give. As a teacher, I have struggled with being too sympathetic and lenient toward students, leading to feelings of pity. However, the greatest bonds and relationships I have built with students are those students I have been assertive with, showed tough love to. High expectations yield short-term pain and conflict, but create long-term relationships built on mutual respect.
That's an introduction to the Warren Devanner. Note the slide here, and this is, next slide is very important. And this is kind of the why, that there's the elements of the Warren Devanner. And we know from the language that we saw in the student investment account interviews with students and with the strategic plan, they said the same thing. They don't feel like they're challenged enough,
Mhm.
and they wonder why. Is it because people don't believe in me? Or they don't think I can do it? Or, all of those things. And teachers want to do this kind of thing, they just don't know how. So we need to give them the tools so they can. So and this is the reason why, is kids need this more than anything.
Let your change on your mind. You can talk about it and talk about it, or you can do something.
I'll pause it for a second.
I have spent my entire life either at the schoolhouse, on the way to the schoolhouse, or talking about what happens in the schoolhouse. Both my parents were educators. My maternal grandparents were educators. And for the past 40 years, I've done the same thing. And so needless to say, over those years, I've had a chance to look at education reform from a lot of perspectives. Some of those reforms have been good, some of them have been not so good. And we know why kids drop out. We know why kids don't learn. It's either poverty, low attendance, negative peer influences. We know why. But one of the things that we never discuss, or we rarely discuss, is the value and importance of human connection. Relationships. James Comer says that no significant learning can occur without a significant relationship. George Washington Carver says all learning is understanding relationships. Everyone in this room has been affected by a teacher or an adult. For years, I have watched people teach. I have looked at the best and I've looked at some of the worst. A colleague said to me one time, they don't pay me to like the kids. They pay me to teach a lesson, the kids should learn it, I should teach it, they should learn it, case closed. Well, I said to her, kids don't learn from people they don't like. She said, that's just a bunch of hooey. And I said to her, well, your year is gonna be long and arduous, dear. Needless to say, it was. Some people think that you can either have it in you to build a relationship or you don't. I think Stephen Covey had the right idea. He said you ought to just throw in a few simple things, like seeking first to understand as opposed to being understood. Simple things like apologizing. You ever thought about that? Tell a kid you're sorry, they're in shock. I taught a lesson once on ratios. I'm not real good with math, but I was working on it. And I got back and looked at that teacher edition, I taught the whole lesson wrong. So I came back to class the next day and I said, look, guys, I need to apologize. I taught the whole lesson wrong. I'm so sorry. I said, that's okay, Miss Pearson. You were so excited. We just let you go. I have had classes that were so low, so academically deficient that I cried. I wondered, how am I going to take this group in 9 months from where they are to where they need to be? And it was difficult. It was awfully hard. How do I raise the self-esteem of a child and his academic achievement at the same time? One year I came up with a bright idea. I told all my students, you were chosen to be in my class because I am the best teacher and you are the best students. They put us all together so we could show everybody else how to do it. One of the students said, really? I said, really? We have to show the other classes how to do it. So when we walk down the hall, people will notice us. So you can't make noise, you just have to spread. And I gave them a saying to say, I am somebody. I was somebody when I came. I'll be a better somebody when I leave. I am powerful and I am strong. I deserve the education that I get here. I have things to do, people to impress, and places to go. And they said, yeah. You say it long enough, it starts to be a part of you. And so I gave a quiz, 20 questions. Student missed 18. I put a +2 on this paper and a big smiley face. He said, Miss you on the road. You got 2 right, you didn't miss them all. Do better. He said, yes, ma'am, I can do better. You see, -18 sucks all the life out. +2 said, I ain't all bad. For years, I watched my mother take the time at recess to review, go on home visits in the afternoon, buy combs and brushes and peanut butter and crackers to put in a desk drawer for kids that needed to eat, and a washcloth and some soap for the kids who didn't smell so good. See, it's hard to teach kids who stink. And kids can be cruel. And so she kept those things in her desk, and years later, after she retired, I watched some of those same kids come through and say to her, you know, Miss Walker, you made a difference in my life. You made it work for me. You made me feel like I was somebody when I knew at the bottom I wasn't. And I want you to just see what I've become. And when my mama died 2 years ago at 92, there were so many former students at her funeral. It brought tears to my eyes, not because she was gone, but because she left a legacy of relationships that could never disappear. Can we stand to have more relationships? Absolutely. Will you like all your children? Of course not. And you know your toughest kids are never at sex. Never. You won't like them all, and the tough ones show up for a reason. It's the connection, it's the relationship. And while you won't like them all, the key is they can never, ever know it. So teachers become great actors and great actresses, and we come to work when we don't feel like it, and we listen to policy that doesn't make sense, and we teach anyway. We teach anyway, because that's what we do. Teaching and learning should bring joy. How powerful would our world be if we had kids who were not afraid to take risks, who were not afraid to think, and who had a champion? Every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists that they become the best that they can possibly be. Is this job tough? You betcha. Oh God, you betcha. But it is not impossible. We can do this. We're educated. We're born to make a difference. Thank you so much.
So if you're going on the journey of becoming a warm demander as a board, you're gonna that last minute there is you now. Everybody needs you to be a champion. You're never giving up on them. Understanding that, everybody's not perfect, but we're gonna lift them up. We're gonna make them feel like we are their champion. And when they see us being their champion, they're going to rise up and elevate and make progress. So I hope that hits home with you, because that really, if you can feel it here, that's what being a warm demander is all.
It's not unlike, some like, an employer had this mantra about care and accountability, and they trained all their management employees, these principles around care and accountability as a way to kind of help improve the performance management, the organization. It was kind of a way of like, how can you hold people accountable, but still sort of value and maintain connection and relationship? And this seems to be sort of a similar theme. It's like, how can you hold students accountable for performance and growth and, as a student, but still keep them in relationship, let them know that, they're cared about and respected, and not an easy thing not an easy balance to strike, for sure.
And from the board vantage, all these teachers are your students, all the administrators, and they're counting on you to be their champion. And when you are, you're going to see things you never thought could happen. And my job is to help you do that. Yeah, so look at that book, page 99. There's lots of good information about being a warm demander. And we'll think about, my job and taking really seriously is to improve the relationships and build the relationships that you want to have with staff and with the community. So it starts, from here.
Thank you.
Okay. I have included the final review, third edit of the document. We can go over that tonight if you've had a chance, or you can look at it on your own and bring that back. I think the one thing we were tossing about is whether or not to have like a glossary.
Yeah, I do remember that being brought up. I didn't bring it up, but I think
I thought with the
I mean, if we're gonna send this out, well, I mean, these are our own personal goals. So,
You're talking about the,
strategic plan.
oh, you're on
Plan.
strategic plan. Oh, so are we not adopting these?
Accepting it, yeah.
Or are we?
We haven't, I think, unless you want to edit the top part. If there's any edits you want to offer there, I think that works for now.
Yeah. So we don't have to do anything formal with those. They're just good.
Yeah.
Okay.
You could just accept them, and then just by saying, yeah, does it work, when they're accepted.
Hey, Ginger, is there a summary of changes to the strategic plan?
I think they're just edits. I don't think there's any significant changes to it.
Like technical edits? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I know that there's still some editing left, like, for example, that picture is really, really old. So we're gonna have a new picture, and there's some other edits to the format before it becomes the final version.
So am I hearing consensus? Do we want to accept this? Or do you guys want some more time to look over?
I'm
Your
good
call.
with it.
I'm good.
I'm good either way.
I'm confused. What are we accepting?
We went back to the board goals. Gotcha.
before-
Wait,
oh,
are,
No, I was on.
Strategic
I was
plan. All right, sorry, never mind.
So somebody tell me, where are we? Because there's all talking.
Strategic
at the same
plan.
time.
We're on
Okay.
C. Accept the district strategic plan on the agenda.
Okay, so are we saying we're gonna accept it with it not complete?
yeah, because we did talk about a glossary since we were sending it out.
Yeah, this is just to make sure that when we add the glossary and then do the final format with updated pictures, that as far as the way that everything is laid out and presented, that the board is accepting that version before it goes to the, I think Jillian's going to do the final,
Final edit on it.
the final, preparing it for publication.
What is FMS?
Oh, we'll talk about that in a minute.
Is,
Okay.
so is that gonna be ready
It's not part of
by
this previous
October,
one.
you think, for the October meeting?
Yeah.
So why don't we just plan on doing that with the business stuff, and then if we can have a final version by then.
Yeah,
That way we're not. Doesn't, it seems kind of redundant to, I mean, I'm not hearing
Yeah,
any other things other than glossary.
we just want to make sure that there's nothing else expected before we go to the final format.
Sure.
Yeah, so if it's just the addition of dealing with the vocabulary. then-
yeah, because I'd
We'll do
like to
that,
cross
yeah.
compare it with my previous one. Sure.
Oh, and you can feel free to do that and send me your suggestions.
Okay.
One question,
Mhm.
will we be publishing a bilingual, I
Mhm.
mean, in multiple languages, I guess? Or- okay, great. So English and Spanish
Spanish.
and that's it.
Mhm.
Okay, so does that give you enough to work with on that?
Sorry, can
Um,
I have one more question, please, Glenn?
Go ahead.
Are we gonna get to review the glossary and other final edits before the October meeting?
I can make that available, yeah.
I really am uncomfortable with accepting something that I haven't looked at the final copy of. If that's the ask for the October meeting, then I would prefer to have time to review it before then.
I would, for us to, we don't want to bring a draft to the final meeting. If you seriously want to give feedback on the work, I would like that to happen before the October meeting, so,
Right,
yeah.
I agree. So that's why I'm confused as to where we are in this process and what the ask is gonna be at the next meeting. So,
So is October too aggressive a schedule?
No, we need to get it out.
Okay, so,
does that make sense? I'm not trying
it
to.
does, yeah, we can't get it a day
Understand.
before, but
Yeah.
if glossary is gonna be added, is that work that you have to collaborate on?
Yeah, I need to, and it wouldn't just be me, I would ask my team to look at it through an equity lens, which things would be, don't translate well, which things need additional explanation, what words might trip people up. So, that would be a process.
Mhm.
What the level of the board's work with the strategic plan document would be the general approval of what the message that we're communicating.
Of the final version that's gonna
Yeah,
go out?
it's not an editing thing. It's not changing this or, doing something different. It's more of a, yeah, this meets what we're trying to do. And you've you have it in a way that really communicates the direction of the district. And we're looking for that level of support. and
Well, like,
engagement.
one of the things on page 8 that I had marked out and made a note of
Okay.
was the reference to DSPT. Those
Right, right, right.
acronyms were never identified
Yeah,
earlier,
that's
so
part of it,
anybody reading it would not be able to know what that was.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Bless you.
Would it make sense, Ginger? Like I sense a little, I mean, I also want this to be out as soon as possible. And putting together a glossary could be a lengthy process. And it's the end of September already.
Yeah, well, I think we can.
So
we
what
can
if,
get that pretty
is a
quickly.
glossary something that can be an accompaniment on the website as opposed to specifically in this document? Or is that,
That's a good idea, Christie.
I mean, it still
I
needs
think
to get
there's
done, right? But
But I think in particular, the example of that, that Crystal brought forward, that we should put that. We should state what that is, because no one's gonna know what that is. So
Yeah.
we need to communicate that piece of information a little bit better. So
Where's that example that you're talking about?
So the previous one I had read that I had with me was on page. They start, oh, well, it says, well, you guys do call it out. You changed it in page 8. I see it now,
Okay,
where there's a thing that says,
Strategical,
yeah.
Okay.
so I do see that added in there. So
Okay.
that's great.
okay.
That's kind of all that,
So I
As long
think
as
that
we-
is fine.
yeah, if you do things like that, if you write the document, that's fine. I mean, is there that much lingo in here that you need a glossary for?
I don't know that
And
there is.
I don't usually go hoping there's a glossary at the end of a document like this. and
I
look for
feel
one.
there's a lot of Google opportunities.
I just generally sort of follow the practice, like the first time you introduce an acronym,
exactly.
you sort of spell it out.
Yeah.
and then you
That's
can
what I was
refer to
looking
the
for, and then I
acronyms
saw it in
later.
there.
Yeah. So like ELA, the first time that's used,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And
And
as
I
long as
think
that's,
I think they've addressed a lot of those in the writing, but we should look through it one more time.
Yeah, maybe that's a Jillian
Yeah.
sort of,
Yeah.
this kind of pass.
So Christy, let me get your sense. Are you wanting a glossary added to this as well, or are you of the opinion that? Go ahead.
yeah, I don't think it's necessary for this particular document. I think a glossary is a great thing to have as far as equity work and stuff somewhere on the within the district, but for this particular, no. But I still am gonna go back to the fact that I know like our job is not copy editing or whatever, but if there are significant changes that are gonna go in, I still would like to preview the final document before we accept it as
Yeah.
just a best practice, so.
And I would agree with that statement. I would say that there are no major changes happening to the document, just the formatting,
So the version in the packet you would say is
pretty.
final?
So you're saying
Or-
the copy portions of this document
Mhm.
probably are not gonna change.
Correct.
Photos potentially
And
will,
formatting.
and
Yeah,
formatting.
better form.
So no, like substantive sort of
Mhm.
content changes. I mean, I do think it's a reasonable ask to look at, sort of understand the final version so that we can just look
Well,
at that.
before it goes to print.
To
So
bless
if
it,
we're-
but it's it's a kind of a tough timing here, I guess. We're talking about 10 days to get a final document and then have the board review it and then get comments back to you if there are any
Mhm.
to be ready to approve it at the.
I'm on
October 10th.
Christie with this one. I will not blind vote on something I haven't had before me ahead of time.
So our next meeting is October 10th. Is it possible to get, do you think we would have a final version by the 6th or the 7th?
So, yeah, I will.
With
I will-
the updated
Yeah.
photos, so it isn't gonna change?
Yeah.
If you guys had it by Tuesday or Thursday or Friday before our meeting,
Yeah. I'd
and
read
then
it
it could
before
come
then.
prepared to vote on that Monday.
Mhm.
Then you just give us a deadline for getting comments back to you. Like, do we get a day, to review and comment back to you or something like that, or?
Or if we
How do you
see
wanna
a
handle that?
glaring error, because that's always a possibility.
Yeah.
Just so that we're not, well, then, but we have an opportunity to weigh in if we see anything.
Mhm.
Maybe we need a deadline for content and then a deadline for any other edits. I mean, I feel like if there's a content question right now, it needs to come forward in the next couple days.
Well, I think it should have come by now.
I don't see any really major differences on what we were. Yeah, I don't see anything. I just cross compared my notes.
Yeah, so
Is
the
that
fifth,
scheduled
the
for-
fifth, yeah, and I'll have Jillian do nothing but ask her,
Just work
ask
it
her to
out.
focus on this.
Backwards on that schedule.
Mhm, mhm.
We got a whole, but
Huh?
we have like 12 days or something like that, or.
Yeah.
Oh, we did have noted on, I had a note on page 10 that a lot of the language used
Mhm.
was over the general population, which is might have been why we talked about having the glossary, but it looks like page 10 moved. And then we had questions on the goals, but none of the goals have changed, so apparently those were disregarded.
That work? For time schedule?
Mhm.
It works for.
What's this thing on the back? Is this part, this isn't the old picture we're gonna use, right?
No, that's the one we're gonna replace with the new picture.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Okay,
All right, so we're down to board operating principles. This is the document we agreed to support at our
yes, yes.
at our retreat.
Wanted to take a look at that. That's been revised for North Marion, replacing Umatilla.
Yep, verbiage.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you guys want some time to look over that, we can schedule this for a vote at the next meeting. If not, I don't know if you guys are prepared to. But then I'll entertain a motion.
Move that we approve the North Marion School District 15 Board Superintendent and Staff Operating Principles dated 9/10/2022 as presented.
Second, Crystal.
Sounds good in a second. Any discussion? All right, none will move to a vote. Richard?
Aye.
Heidi?
Aye.
Christie?
Aye.
Ricardo?
Aye.
Crystal?
Hi.
Bill?
Aye.
And chair votes for. So that motion carries.
Okay.
With that, that looks like all we had on our schedule. Does anybody have anything else? Oh,
So-
yeah, did you want to discuss that a little
Yes.
bit more in detail?
Yes, you were asking me about the, well, I've been talking about reorganizing the leadership team. Yeah, you asked for basic framework for what that looks like. This document Des created for us, thank you, Des, to help emphasize the fact that we are reorganizing the admin team to support principals and instructional leaders to support teachers. So our purpose in our organizational structure is to provide as much support to the principals to lead instructional improvement in their buildings. And this is what that looks like. And we're going to share it with the staff tomorrow, but I wanted you to see it, to see if you had any questions about it. And, it's been challenging for them in the past, and in my debrief with former employees and former managers. One of the things that they said they would do different is to make sure that the teachers knew that the principal was the instructional leader, and that's who they went to when they wanted to do things, instead of saying, well, if you want this, you call this person. If you want that, you call this person. If you want this, you call this person. And then the teacher had to navigate a lot of different voices before they knew what to do. So, so we've streamlined that, and we're putting all of our efforts into supporting principals so that they can support teachers. And we are, that's an iterative loop. So as that's just rolling out, we're checking to see how it's going, and when it's not working well. And how we know that is by utilizing people like Bill, who goes around in every building and meets with teachers and meets with principals and asks them questions. He has an architecture, conversation, looking at the strategic plan, what we're trying to accomplish. And then elicits from people what their stuck points are, identifies things that aren't working real smoothly, and then we get together as the central office team and then fix it. Find a solution, solve a problem, and then take it back and implement it really quickly. And that seems to be working more effectively right now.
Can you remind me the difference between instructional leaders and instructional coaches?
Yes. Well, Jess, you want to talk about that, your area of expertise?
Sure. The instructional leaders are usually more like department heads or grade level
Okay.
team heads. And then the instructional coaches are typically pulled out of the classroom and they're functioning more to offer direct support. So they're part of the instructional leadership team,
Okay,
but are, and would be considered instructional leaders by all means, but they have a separate role.
okay, so they are not, okay, I got it. So the instructional leaders is like the one that's doing the head of each like grade level, or when there's lower grade level, and then the instructional coaches are like our math, our reading, and that one.
Yeah, it's a little different this year.
Mhm.
So for the intermediate and the primary school, the last few years, it's been
Right.
math and reading have had specific instructional
Right.
leaders. This year they hired 2 instructional mentors, is
Okay.
the title they're giving, and they're more generalists in the way. So they don't have one that's doing all the math and one that's doing all the reading, but instead they're offering kind of support together. And then working on those systems as a team, and they're,
Okay.
part of that work is going to be around how they're restructuring, how we offer support. So part of like Spring, for example, when she was doing just instructional leadership in math, she was also doing a lot of arranging of what the interventions was looking like for kids.
Yeah,
Because we're using a different model, that isn't as big of a need. And so now it's really about those instructional leaders. Deanna McCarthy is going to be one, and Kimberly Rhodes is our other instructional mentor for those 2 buildings. Same with the middle school, there are 2 instructional leaders, Amanda Colley and Chelsea Landry, serve as more like generalists in the way of just like, what are good teaching learning practices and how do we see it happening across our building?
okay, awesome.
So how does our staff, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, our instructional leaders are also, are they teaching also, or are they
Yes.
just working? Okay.
Yeah, all of our instructional leaders are still full-time teachers. It's just like an extra duty.
The
role.
stipend
Mhm,
thing,
the
right?
Stipend position.
And instructional coaches, that is their job.
That is their job.
Okay.
Yeah. At the middle school, they do also still teach like one class. They're both of our and instructional mentors at the middle school are avid teachers, I believe. And so they are taking one class, but the majority of their day is set up to work with staff, be in classrooms, support in those ways.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and
Oh.
at the high school level, like the grade level team, instructional leaders, and then at the high school, it's like department leaders. So the English department, the math department, the CTE department, et cetera, and same with the middle school. They have more specific, actually, I may be misspeaking, theirs could be grade level also, like 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade.
At the middle school.
At the middle school, I'm not as positive about that one. It could be
That's
either.
okay.
Middle school gets a little tricky, it could be a little bit of both.
True. All right,
So our instructional coaches from staffing standpoint, are they accessed through a request? Are they accessed just like on a regular basis? What defines, when a coach would get involved?
So there's kind of 2 answers to that. The first is that we're working on developing a more cohesive system through an instructional coaching framework. And I'm working with the different instructional mentors, instructional coaches on what that can really look like. What's been done in the past that will kind of build that framework around is kind of a combination of things. So I'll use the middle school as example. they have really a menu of things that they can offer. And so it's teacher requests, it's also through walkthroughs with the principal and just like popping into classrooms and gathering data and then seeing a need and stepping in to fill it. They have the teacher request is on several different levels. So for example, Chelsea offers both a lab classroom where she'll be teaching and teachers can come on their prep and like watch her teach, or she can go into classrooms, do co-teaching with them, do side-by-side instruction where they're teaching and she's kind of doing whisper coaching as she's going, etc. And then there's just some other general duties that's around professional development if teachers request something specific or if there's a school-wide initiative. For example, at both of the elementary schools, a lot of support around the new ELA curriculum adoption rollout. So what do we want this to look like? What supports do you need? What tools? With Chelsea and Amanda, a lot of their work is around Avid, so they do a lot of push in and support around Avid strategies that they're working to implement school-wide. So those kind of like specific professional development or offering specific support of what like that could look like. Our next kind of layer as part of the instructional framework is I'm working directly with principals and then through them, the leadership team and the instructional coaches on developing walkthrough look fors. And actually, as you guys, I know one of the board goals is to get into classrooms. So as we develop those will be things we bring to you too. Like, what does it look like to see a warm demander in practice? What should we be seeing? What are things we can take data points on, as well as just give feedback around what did we hear and whatnot. So kind of like that checklist, not as clinical as a checklist might sound, but kind of like what would we expect to see if we're doing this right? And then how can we gather data and determine whether or not we are? And where, when we see that we aren't, can we find leverage points to kind of push them?
Thank you.
Awesome.
I will say, when I looked at this chart, I was confused because I'm used to seeing org charts that are top down. And I was really trying to, what is this? I was really trying to figure it out, but I don't know if this was your intent, but it's kind of interesting because you have the central office as the base, the foundation, the support with the students and staff on top and how everything goes to support those. And I think that's kind of a cool take on it.
This feels like a warm demander.
Yeah.
And I would say, as I went
clear.
to build it, that was the very first thing Ginger said is, you're gonna flip the org chart on its head, and I am not on the top, I'm on the bottom, and we're supporting up. And so then we just started thinking about, I'm an English teacher at my heart, so what is the symbolism that we use to kind of get to that concept? And so the hands is that, how are we kind of saying that's you, we have you with the support you need, and that there is a network of people grabbing on and like providing that support. So it kind of flowed from there. And even today we made a revision because it was like, there is extra layers of connection we wanted to make sure we established. So it visually looked good, but we moved people around to bring them down to build the connection with the instructional leaders and the principals. Because that really is the principal's core team of enacting their vision for teaching.
I really like it.
So did this mindset start prior to students arriving, so in service week? I'm
Yes.
assuming this
Yes.
this mindset was already being rolled out, sort of there.
Yes, and we told them we would be presenting them, but we didn't have the visual set. We're not gonna, we didn't want to preview it too soon.
Sure.
And this emerged from how we interpret the strategic plan
Yeah.
and how it's.
So
going to
this
be
blueprint
accomplished.
was rolling pretty well
Yeah.
at the onset
Yeah.
of this school year. So.
Mhm,
Yeah, I think
absolutely.
that was week 2. This is your task. Like, okay, we can work on it.
So the other thing the board asked me to do, charged me to do, was to find 2 dates to do community forum. And ideally, it would be dates where there would be other people available on site. So I have 2 proposed dates. I believe one of them is November 17th. And the other one, I believe, is either February 16th or March 16th. Depending on what, how you wanted to time it.
First one was November 17th.
Yes. Those are dates that the migrant parent meetings are occurring on campus. All the other months have dates, for example, I thought, could we do it at the conferences? That would end up being a really bad time. So April's out because that's conference month. January's too soon, kind of thing, if we do one in November.
Who are you
So
thinking would participate from the district?
from the, what do you mean? You mean staff wise or?
Yeah, staff or board or,
Well, it's your forum, so that's the other thing I wanted to say is, we have 2 dates now, so the question is, this is the board's forum, so what is the board want it to look like? How do you plan to operate it? How long do you want it to be? I mean, it's your forum, so, but we can, now that we identified dates and a good time when people will be here, so you can access people. And we can invite others and set up other things. We have lots of time. The question is,
And it was March 16th,
yeah, or February,
February.
or March, depending on which month you wanted to do. I wouldn't go any later than that because it's kind of,
March, I probably cannot do.
okay.
So both Thursday nights, looks like. Okay.
I could probably do February.
Okay. I don't know about March.
I won't be here the 17th of November. We got an all-day field trip. and I'll stay in Florida.
Yeah, I'm not here the month of November. But that's, you should, don't place anything on that.
Well, we could wait until, if that, so 11/17 is an option, January 19th is an option. The 16th.
Well, I mean, like, I don't know if there's already an agenda for that meeting or ideas, but
There
I
isn't,
think one of them was like, Parent Square. Talking about how
Yeah,
Parents
it's
can use-
huge.
Parent Square, how is that, what are ways that parents can communicate with the school, with
Yeah.
teachers, with, and how can we support that? So there might be better sooner than later, if we're gonna talk about Parent Square, so they can.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
is it a listening session too? I
well,
know we've
that's,
seen
yeah,
this
that's,
different-
Yeah,
that's
this-
different than.
I was gonna say, this is probably, I think we need a definition as to what
There we go.
we want to
Yeah.
happen at this, if this is a board forum, because those are things that the district could be doing,
Well,
as
But if
outreach.
you wanna get parents here, you gotta put something.
Yes,
you
gotta
have
put the
to-
carrot
you
out
have
there.
some-
Yeah.
Something they're
Debate on that,
interested in.
huh?
because
I
if
will
they come to the
say-
board, They won't come.
I will say Parent Square is very difficult for some. It's extremely difficult. On the second hand, we could do like a two-base thing where we cover Parent Square for a certain amount of time, like a brief overview. And then we have like a tech support on the side if they need help setting it up or if they're having an issue to help them understand that. Then on the second piece, we could cover the warm demander of our strategic plan, which is part of the community forum. So you could say, the first 30 minutes we'll cover just a brief overview of Parent Square with, and it doesn't even have to be 30 minutes. It can be 15 minutes with an FAQ sheet available. What am I looking for? Oh, you find that here. What am I looking for? Oh, you find that here. Because I've never been able to find an FAQ for this. So, and then the second piece is being a warm demander. So how can I use Parent Square to be a warm demander? An expectation component.
Yeah, and
What
I-
is my role as a parent?
Yeah.
Well, see, now there's a different question.
Yeah, I mean, to
I
me,
mean,
it
there's
seems,
a technical, go ahead.
well, I was just thinking, that sounds like a lot of talking as opposed to listening. and
Well,
I guess
yeah,
I
yeah.
would sort of see this as an opportunity to hear too.
Yeah,
It's just
exactly.
how do we sort of engage them in a way that encourages people to come and be part of it and give, some meaningful sort of questions that are gonna give us feedback that we can
I mean, we,
act on.
I will say in this district, we have tried things like this in the past. And they have had mixed and sometimes not great attendance because if it's not some, it's one more thing people have to come out for. And if it's not something that is of interest to them or that is, you know,
Mhm.
if it's just like, come talk to the board or come ask questions, you know,
I get
if
it.
things are going well, especially. No, no.
I mean, done it during the middle of a mask debate.
Yeah.
We would have no problem filling the room.
Yeah.
I was thinking more about the,
I like how you have the community forum thing, because the SIA thing was really good. So maybe we could have a table that has parents for questions, and then the table like, what is my role? And so it could be like a carnival type thing where they can
Go to
go
different
table
hot
to
topics,
table.
tables,
Yeah.
exactly.
I like
Are we
carnival
wrapping
better.
this around
It sounds
strategic
fun.
planning yet?
well, there's an integration with strategic planning.
So are
There's
we
a
wrapping it
connection.
around dashboard with what?
Yeah, I
I mean,
well, and then there's the policy level stuff. I mean, you want to talk to parents about, you want to engage in a conversation with them about what are their experiences in the school
mhm,
and what's working and what's not working. And
Mhm.
what's their view of how things could be different and we're not asking for, give us a list of things to do, check off. It's not like that. We're trying to put everyone's ideas together to build a better district
Yeah.
and get more people.
I
So it's
kinda-
that level of conversation.
I kind of like the hot topics kind
Yeah.
of style
Yeah,
table where
and-
parents can go to different tables
Right.
with, and
So
you have
one
a
could
board
be-
member or something at each
Right.
table to kind of facilitate
Right.
discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and it could be those same topics you're talking about, is
Yeah.
parent square the thing, or is it communication?
Right.
And then one of the things that we've been talking about is, we understand that certain people, certain opinions are moving in a different direction towards conferences. Some parents have no interest in conferences, they're a complete waste of time. And more and
Oh,
more
it's
people are,
flickering.
because they have a different need, and that need is for more frequent, smaller bits of information rather on an ongoing basis, rather than a one, I get to talk to you twice a year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so, there's all sorts of things that are changing, and having a dialogue about the district with respect to how those things are changing is really important to do.
Mhm. I agree.
I remember that we, was it at the retreat, that you
Yeah.
guys wanted to talk with, Myron,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so.
I remember that.
Was that the community engagement sort of keynote, or was it a different
No, it was at our
Oh,
board work
board retreat?
retreat. We talked about you going and being a representative to connect with families who we don't usually get to connect with.
Is that was?
Mhm.
didn't happen,
Which
so-
is why I picked those nights, because those are the nights that the migrant program is having an event here.
So they'll already be on campus.
They're already be there.
Yeah, 17th,
It,
November 17th.
Ginger, do you know if those Thursday nights are like sports competition nights? I know like for fall.
Always. 4 to 5 days a week, there are sports competitions.
Ugh,
Yeah, so that's,
except for those
we
ones.
can't work around that, especially in the winter, because then there's multiple teams. There's, girls and boys basketball, there's JV, varsity, sometimes.
November is like a
Okay.
good spot though, because it's right in between.
mhm.
Mhm.
And if we did hot topic, like little vignette tables. Trying to maximize our interaction, 'cause you're probably the only board member who's fluent, bilingual. I
But
don't want to
that-
speak to anybody else,
no.
but that's, I mean,
At a hot topic table though, you can say, bilingual board member available.
absolutely,
I
yeah,
mean, that's a huge one.
it is.
Not to throw you out.
and
there
a
too
great
much.
way to,
I'll sit by you and smile.
interchange information.
You can help me.
And a great
Yeah.
activist.
I think we should have a board member who's willing to kind of help hear this.
Yeah, there might be one for like college and career readiness table.
Mhm.
I feel like, the value of my kids' education will take them, outside once they leave the district is, that's a concern that they would have. Communication is another. I mean, we can come up with, there's equity, access, or we are not accessing programs. It could be a tag table, there could be, special education table. People talk about their experiences in programs. And there's lots of things that, we want to stay, I think, as high as possible in getting people to think about the big picture. And it's
Yeah.
not just, yes, you're here representing yourself and your child, but we're thinking about all the children. So how do we take all the information?
Yeah, a lot of people have been asking lately if kids are have a personal finance course, and I'm like, I think so. I'm like, I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
It's built in that it either happens in economics or one of
Yeah.
the social studies classes.
So.
yeah.
I mean, it's oddball questions. Current score is huge though.
Yeah, I think every child before they leave for school needs to understand compound interest.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Period.
Rule
Yeah.
72,
Yes.
it has to be.
exactly. Have to.
especially, yeah,
And, that lesson number one is, do you really have to pay for college to go to college?
Yeah.
Take out loans for it, or can you do it another way?
yes, absolutely.
Things like that. Anyway, so it's just kind of a bigger topics, and then we get more too that way. More feedback. So anyway, so we'll have to design our forms before we set the dates.
Yeah, I'm wondering if somebody wants to spearhead this besides me.
I can help with community forums. Just know that I won't be available in March.
Okay.
Because I'm gonna be. Oh wait, we're on.
So have we picked any of these dates for our first one?
You said you are available in November, or you're not?
Mhm, I'm available in
If,
November.
if the November 17th date is germane with,
So Bill's not
Right, so
available that.
you're
day.
not available, however,
I'm not, Bill's not, but that's fine.
My other thing is, this is probably kind of sidebar, is the PTO having their carnival where we could have a table there too?
I don't know, but that would be a great idea.
Cause then we kind of catch like the middle school and the older, which is a little easier to catch. The primary is kind of still, I don't know why, but those primary parents are harder to catch.
You could have a fun table too, something, I mean, it
Yeah.
could be a board table, but we're also doing some kind of like little.
Mhm.
I'm
carnival.
very fond of like, what is that, rubber ducky?
Yeah,
Yes,
then, yeah. Yeah.
Easy, they love it.
Yep.
What color rice?
yes, it's very cute.
Yeah, come on,
Yeah, so
Richard.
You pick a.
You pick a
has
duck and it
number
has
on
the
the bottom.
number. and
Okay. All right.
You can pick till you get two matches. Sometimes they get complex. We could even do math.
Thank you.
You want to do it with me?
we did the Pocket Lady one year
Okay.
for the auction, and I'm telling you what, it was.
So I don't know. Oh, you want me to reach out and see if they're doing it or not?
Harvest Festival.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
anything else?
Thank you.
All right, I guess we'll gavel down 7:51, so,
thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
yes, thank you.